Hello, I'm Dominic Walker, JMW's Inside Man, and I'm with Suzanne Staunton. Suzanne is a partner and barrister at JMW's London office, specialising in employment law. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, Dominic.
So there has been a recent decision at the Employment Appeals Tribunal, and a lady called Mayor Forstater, who lives in Hertfordshire, didn't have a contract renewed at an employer called CGD after a tweet which I think some people deemed to be transphobic. But can you explain exactly what did happen, please, Suzanne?
Yes, absolutely. So effectively, the claimant believed that and believes that sex is immutable. She says it's nothing to do with gender identity, but you're right. She made remarks that transgender people and other people believed to be transphobic, and her contract was consequently not renewed. She claims that she has been discriminated against because of her philosophical belief and brought an employment tribunal claim. The employment tribunal had a preliminary hearing, which was regarding the preliminary issue of whether or not, in fact, she did have a philosophical belief. And the employment tribunal concluded that her beliefs could constitute harassment and therefore were not a belief worthy of respect in a democratic society and therefore not protected. So that was appealed to the Employment Appeal Tribunal, and they found that there was an error of law. They found, in fact, that it was a belief worthy of respect in a democratic society and did not meet the very high thresholds that would be excluded, which would be a belief like Nazism. So although it recognized that it could potentially be an offensive belief to some and could result in harassment in some circumstances, it still amounted to a protected philosophical belief.
And so there will be HR directors scratching their heads in the wake of this decision and sort of saying, well, hang on a minute, what happens if we see a tweet that we think is offensive and, and maybe somewhere towards the top end of the threshold in philosophic beliefs? You know, practically what should they do?
I think they need to be mindful of the case law on this. It is complicated, and certainly in this case, when it's gone to the EAT, it's probably going to go to the Court of Appeal in due course. So it is a complicated matter whether or not something does amount to a philosophical belief or not. Let me read you the leading case on this, which is Granger. And the key paragraph is this, and this relates to the criteria. First, the belief must be genuinely held. Second, it must be a belief and not an opinion or viewpoint based on the present state of information available. Third, it must be a belief as to a weighty and substantial aspect of human life and behavior. Fourth, it must attain a certain level of cogency, seriousness, cohesion, and importance. And fifth, it must be worthy of respect in a democratic society, be not incompatible with human dignity, and not conflict with the fundamental rights of others. Now, in this case, the Granger criteria was adhered to mainly on the basis that the claimant in this case had a belief that was widely shared by others, and also it is consistent with the current law. So they did deem that it was worthy of respect in a democratic society. Now, the court was right to find that it is offensive to some. And I think that being the case, if an HRD is faced with a similar situation, they will need to conduct a really careful balancing act up against the Granger criteria and may well want to seek assistance from their general counsel or an external lawyer to try and make an assessment on whether or not it does in fact amount to a philosophical belief.
and that is where you come in there, Suzanne. Just before I explain how to contact you, what about transgender people then who think people are being transphobic towards them?
Well, they do still have protections under the Equality Act. This was a decision simply on what amounts to a philosophical belief. But the judgment makes it very clear that does not take away from the protections that transgender people have. And they still can bring claims under the Equality Act for direct discrimination or other forms of discrimination and harassment under the Equality Act.
Thank you very much for your insight, Suzanne. And if you'd like to talk to Suzanne, get her advice on these matters, you can contact her via me, insideman@jmw.co.uk, or call me on 0161 82 81 999. I'm Dominic Walker, JMW's Inside Man.